This is a program that was launched in the wake of the WikiLeaks disclosures by Private Manning. It follows also the shooting at Fort Hood by Major Hassan, allegedly by Major Hassan. And it's an attempt, another attempt by the government, and this follows a long history of attempts by the government, to crack down on leaks of classified information. The problem here is, though, that the definition, or at least the instructions from the White House to the agencies in implementing this program is exceedingly broad and has left many of the details to the agencies and departments themselves to implement. And some of these departments, we've found, are not only going after leaks of classified information, but unauthorized leaks of any information at all. It involves what appears to be profiling by workers of their coworkers, and admonitions to supervisors that they had better make sure that any suspicious behavior is reported, because that could be a sign of a security risk among their staff. And beyond that, it exhorts employees of these federal agencies, at least within the Pentagon and other agencies, to treat leaks like espionage. In other words, if anybody leaks to the press, that's like leaking to the enemies of the United States. We asked the Pentagon, how do you accommodate something like the leak of the Pentagon Papers with this kind of policy, i.e. The leak of information that showed that successive American governments had misled and lied to their people about the conduct of the war in Indochina, and we received no answer, no direct answer to our question from the Pentagon.
Jonathan, you spoke to a senior Pentagon official who is critical of insider threat, and he says, quote, "It's about people's profiles, their approach to work, how they interact with management. Are they cheery? Are they looking at Salon.com or The Onion during their lunch break? This is about the Stepford Wives." It's a reference to the movie of the 70s. What are you hearing about what kind of a work environment this is creating in government?
Well, it's already, the work environment is already one where people who used to talk to me and I suspect other reporters are no longer willing to talk about it, or talk to us, simply for fear that they're going to encounter retaliation for talking to a journalist and not disclosing, simply not disclosing classified information, but simply trying to give us context, at least in my experience, trying to give me context about stories that we report normally, trying to get an idea of where the U.S. government, how the U.S. government views a particular issue. They're not willing, at least some of the people that I know, are no longer willing to even do that. So the environment as a result of this seems to be pretty toxic, and seems to be there seems to be the possibility, or the distinct possibility, that it could get even more toxic.
Where does the Onion fit into this, Jonathan?
I think that this was just a comment by this particular individual, because the Onion is seen to be perhaps very critical of the government. It's something that perhaps some government employees like to look at or like to read during their lunch breaks. And I think he was semi-serious, where he was saying, if an employee is found to be reading the Onion at lunchtime, that could be taken as perhaps a sign of anti-government bias on the part of that employee, and that they need to have their eye, people need to keep their eyes on this person.
Can you tell us who Alana Greenstein is?
Alana Greenstein is a former CIA covert officer who believes that she was falsely accused of being a security risk. And even after going through the proper channels for reporting what she believed were violations of security and other matters while she was serving in Iraq, she even wrote to the then director of the CIA, Michael Hayden. She and her attorney wrote to the CIA Inspector General, and instead she felt that she was being retaliated against, and she resigned from the agency.
Jonathan, you write that this program could create a form of groupthink, a form of lack of creative thinking that helped lead to the invasion of Iraq?
This was Ilana's observation. This was a story that I covered quite intensely for quite a few years, disclosing a lot of the bogus intelligence that was used to justify the invasion. And her point being, we know that the Senate Intelligence Committee found, I believe it was the Intelligence Committee, found that there was this groupthink within the intelligence community behind the false assessment that Saddam Hussein had activated his weapons of mass destruction program. This is the kind of atmosphere that Ilana believes could be created because of the insider threat program, where you have people who are afraid to think outside the box, afraid to challenge whatever the majority opinion is, because it could attract attention to them as being a potential insider threat. This is about profiling, I think, in the end, which we know is pretty problematic. I think one of the biggest problems here is that the government seems to always react in the wrong way and in an extreme way to this kind of thing, rather than trying to tackle the core of the problem, which is the enormous number of people, almost 5 million, who have clearances and access to classified material. And a lot of those people are contractors, as well as the problem, and this goes way back to the overclassification by the government of materials. And I think that one of the problems here is that the more there is a perception that the government is doing the wrong thing by cracking down on civil liberties and privacy and doing things like collecting the telephone data of millions of Americans, the greater the chances are going to be that you're going to have a leak, that there will always be someone who's going to feel that the government has crossed the lines when it comes to the Constitution and the law, and they're going to go leak because they do not trust the prescribed channels within the government for being a whistleblower. We've seen what's happened to whistleblowers. Tom Drake, for instance, you've had him on this program, where they have used and Ilana Greenstein, who we talked to, who used the proper channels to try and report what they saw as being waste or fraud or abuse, and being retaliated against rather than having their concerns addressed.